You're on.
It's December 19th, 2014, Longwood negotiations.
Move up to front. It's not like it's church or anything.
Lee, you want to introduce yourself before I'm taking?
Lee Ritchie, Human Resources Director, City of Longwood.
John Williams, City Manager, City of Longwood.
Troy Hickson, Chief of Police.
John Rodriguez, Houston, Chief Steward.
Bob Walker, Teamsters Local 385 Business Agent. I want to thank everybody for coming. Been a while since we've been back here. I guess the operators have ratified their contract. They won't be here. We did invite the fire department. I have not heard anything back from them. I met recently with the members of the Longwood Police Department. They have made their demands known to me, and I've got some handouts here. Crowd as well. We can go bullet point by bullet point if you'd like. When I met with the officers, unanimously, 100%, they wanted to maintain longevity pay. That was near and dear to their hearts. So our first proposal would be the reactivation or the unfreezing of longevity pay to include all PD employees being made whole through 2014. The contract, I believe, stopped longevity in 2009. And this is not to include employees who may have left the city's employment prior to this date. So if somebody left in 11 or 12 and they say, hey, I hear they unfroze longevity, where's my pay? It would keep you from protect you in that realm. This is just for active, current police officers. The next two bullet points are basically money that's already been budgeted. Contract year 2013-2014, the budgeted 2% general wage increase. The third bullet point is contract year 2014-2015, the budgeted 3% general wage increase. We don't know how the commission feels yet on a multi-year contract or if they're ready to address 2015-2016, but we placed a reasonable offer there for that year of 5% general wage increase. All 3 years would total 10%. It's nothing overboard, it's nothing over the top. It's certainly reasonable considering the fact the officers have not had raises in many years. And I have a few talking points we'll go over in just a minute. The arbitration article to remain status quo, I know that's been a push-button topic over the past several years, but we'd like that to remain status quo. The CPPs, we would like them to be discussed in a labor management setting. The CPPs to be brought to conclusion within a year of start time. The Teamsters believe that a committee made up of employees and management will be able to come to sensible agreements over these issues. And of course, the last bullet point is all contract articles remain status quo through the contract duration.
For the 3 year,
We're operating blind in the absence of a shade meeting. I don't know what the commissioners want, what they're going to accept. I put a third year out there just in case they are open to a multi-year contract. But like I say, you don't have a shade meeting scheduled, so we're...
No, we, based upon our conversations, Bob, prior to this meeting, I think we both concluded that it would probably be best to have an understanding of the proposal from your membership to take back to the commission in a shade meeting and then proceed from there, especially since I think the last offer that was presented to your membership was late September, right around the beginning of the fiscal year, which kind of included a 3% across the board, merging longevity or service bonus into everybody's pay, and then essentially tabling everything else to kind of work through, as you pointed out. So what we'll do is I'll need to figure out what the fiscal impact of the proposal is, and then I'll call for a shade and present this information to the commission.
Joe put out an email requesting the dollar amounts that each officer would need to be made
Going back to when they were frozen to where they
Correct.
currently are or should
Correct.
be now.
Unfortunately, a handful of officers did not respond to the email. I don't think it's anything of a monumental exercise for us to get the data and, figure it out. We do have 21 officers here, and the cost of the 21 is, we're calculating at $54,000 right there to make them whole up until this point. What the total cost is yet, we don't know. But just a couple of real quick talking points. Longwood police officers, as we all know, they're going into their 7th year without a pay increase. No cost of living increases, no raises, no longevity payments, nothing in the last 6+ years to offset any form of inflation. The Longwood officers have been getting married, having babies, and there's just, their families are growing and their paycheck is not growing. So, their pay has essentially remained the same over the past 6 years. The longevity was frozen in 2010. Actually, it was frozen in 2009 when I looked at the contract. It was a year, 2008 and 2009. The officers saw the longevity as the only thing separating them from a one job, one pay status. And like I said, when we polled the members, 100% were in favor of maintaining longevity. They look at it as a step plan that was in place prior to any study that was done. The raises for contract years 2013, 2014, 2014, 2015 have been budgeted. The money's there. That totals 5%. We're only asking here for what has already been budgeted, nothing more on that.
So for 2013, 2014, and then 2014, 2015, you're looking for retro status.
Not retro, but the 5%. If you guys want to pay retro, that's fine. I've always been told you guys are dead set against retro.
Right, I was just trying to understand what the proposal was.
Yeah.
Is that retro?
You know what? Why don't you bring retro back to the commissioners and see what they say?
We'll do that.
But, okay. Like I say, we don't know how the commission is going to feel about a multi-year contract. But we are open to one at this time. The CPPs. We believe some of the CPPs are a little bit over the top in looking at them. I understand you haven't had them updated since 1990 and you're 20 some odd years behind. I understand that. I understand the city's need to have CPPs, GOs, or whatever you call them. But some of it is just a little bit in the realm of harsh. I'm looking at, this is with discipline, with Group 1 offenses. This actually says a third offense could bring you up to a termination on a Group 1 offense. I know policemen who commit 10 Group 1 offenses before they even leave the briefing room. This is a little bit harsh. I think we need to sit down in labor management type settings and look at some of the stuff that could severely impact employees over the next few years. I think a labor management setting would serve us best. And we can set a deadline on it, a year, a calendar year, a fiscal year, to bring this thing to a conclusion with agreements.
Sure. We're doing that with some of the other collective bargaining units, and it's been a very efficient process and a great opportunity for us to understand the concerns from your membership, and certainly for your membership to understand the concerns that management may have. Some of it is updated FMLA policy, stuff that is dictated by federal law, so we don't have much opportunity to really debate those specific sections of the CPP, but welcome the idea of a labor management type of setting.
One of the misunderstandings about the CPPs, when the employees would read it, they would go, oh my God, look at this, but I try to make them understand that when you have a contract in place, the contract trumps CPP. Yeah, so it's not really a worry, but they do have long-term concerns, and I don't want to get into them here.
Sure. Well, I think in the first section of the CPP, section 1.02 or something, 1.03, it clearly calls out that if there is a conflict between that document and an existing collective bargaining agreement, the collective bargaining agreement would supersede, so.
Correct me if I'm wrong, the only time the CPP will apply to members whose position is covered under the union is when their CBA is silent
Correct.
That's correct.
to the issue.
Correct.
That's correct, yep.
The only other thing I did not put on the proposal sheet that I'd like to see implemented, if you could make a notation for the commission, any type of Me Too clause on wages or any type of benefits that another union would negotiate, I want to be able to be addressed and have my people brought up to speed on that as well. I know the fire department is in contract negotiations. I believe the operators have already settled, correct?
They have settled on the proposal that we presented to you, which provided a wage increase effective October 1st. Their longevity merged into the base salary. All the other items that we're talking about here today, arbitration, CPP, merit, they give us a period of 9 months to work that. And we've been meeting with them since late October, maybe early November.
So they did agree to roll in longevity into the base?
Yes, they did.
That was prior to this seated commission, correct?
That is correct, yeah. They ratified mid-September, late September, if that's correct.
It was right for the change in the new budget year.
Yeah, right.
Only other cause for concern that was brought to my attention was some of the, and we can probably handle this with labor management, on-call stats. Being told that some of the officers are literally on call forever.
Based upon the shortages in the unit.
Right. I think that, so I'll ask these guys, can you go out and have a beer? And they say, no, I'm on call all year round. I mean, that's crazy, that's a lot of stress. So I think if the chief and I, and maybe a labor management team can get together, we can discuss maybe getting some type of relief for these guys that are continuously on call status. Basically, that's all I have for today, unless, I know we're operating without, have you had any shade meetings with the new seated commission?
I have not, no.
So we're all operating in the dark until you do?
Yeah. And our next regularly scheduled commission meeting is June 19th. Or excuse me,
January.
January 19th. Fast forward, January 19th. Just a couple questions for clarifying, Chief. I think they attempted to, on the 2% to 3%, and even for fiscal year, contract year 15 to 16, 5%. Well, let's just deal with 2%, 3%. Implemented at ratification, but you do want us to bring back the question of retroactive.
It was always mentioned to me in negotiations that your city does not pay retroactivity as a policy out of fear of setting a past practice. That was the way it was relayed to me, so, but I would like to see you bring it back to the commission, see if they will pay retroactive.
I think some of your previous proposals that you brought in the past had the retro clause. It was during the times of the executive session is when the seated commission at the time
Yes.
said no retroactivity.
Yes, and you guys were clear about that because you would reject it right at the table, so, yeah. Yeah, if you could, bring back the idea of retro to the commission, and then we'll reorient from there.
Good, we'll do it. Anything else? Lee?
I'm just curious, being naive. 2009 to now, and when was the last time you guys all met?
We met.
August or September? I think it was late August.
And then we
2020.
gave them the proposal that. the
That's given to
IUE,
IUE.
Yeah,
Okay.
but obviously changed for their collective
And
bargaining
prior to
agreement.
that, were you meeting regularly or?
We've been negotiating since I've come on board.
Okay.
The last 4 years, we've probably negotiated close to 15 or better times.
Wow.
Yeah. reasons at the time, but you're dealing with a new seating commission, a new philosophy on labor management, and we'll see. I really don't know from here on out how they're gonna come back at us.
Yeah, the best course of action now is just to set an executive session and present the proposal, and then as soon as that is concluded, we'll call a negotiating session and come back to the table.
Is there any way your side, John, can crunch the numbers for back longevity pay to make everybody
Oh,
whole?
yeah.
If you can do that, let me know.
Sure, we'll share that prior to going in. I'm gonna have to deliver that at the executive session, so we'll have that.
To show the monetary impact.
Yeah.
Right.
That's happening January 19th.
That's the commission meeting, that's where I'll have them all back together. I can ask them ahead of time, what their schedule is like, but if I don't, get everybody pinned down, usually what I do is ask them during the regular commission meeting,
Okay.
and then set them.
That way they're all there to look at their calendars.
Sometimes it's hard judging on five individuals.
Bob, we can certainly discuss this at a labor management meeting, but have on the on-call status with the shortages, I know in traffic. I don't think we have that in CID right now,
I
but
think the K-9 guys also mentioned that they're basically on call 24/7.
It's kind of weird how their policy is written. It says they're on call, but obviously they're not an on-call status per our department. So
Right.
there's kind of confusion on what they mean by on-call for them.
meaning of whether or not that when they're called, they can say, hey, I'm out.
Pretty much. So I guess the three guys that are in K-9 are kind of scared to say no, I can't come out, because obviously if they're on call, they have to come out. So,
Being on call 24/7 all year round is very stressful. You go somewhere, you can't have a drink, you're afraid to leave town, you can't go here, you can't go there because you're on call. Being on call and not responding brings discipline. So, I think we need to work something where there's some downtime for some of these guys, they rotate or whatever the situation may be.
Okay, have they proposed
No,
any ideas?
nothing concrete at this time, just like a rotation to where it's feasible. I don't know how bad your manpower shortage is. That's something we'll have to discuss in the meeting, but no concrete proposal in that realm.
Right, with the canines, we have three different
right,
canines, so it's not like that you have three full-service dogs.
right.
You've got a drug canine, which there's really, the on-call status, I don't foresee the likelihood of that person being called out much of any.
Sure.
The whole, historically going back to that, the whole thing and the whole reason that we train like we do with the county is the agreement was that all of the county canine units would be placed, now this is going back several years with the sheriff's office in Winter Springs and Altamont Castleberry, where everybody will try to work of placing the canine units at your departments, whereas there would always be a full-service dog, 10-8, in the county that would be on call for all of the county during that patrol shift. I don't know what that has morphed into, because quite frankly, I haven't heard that it was a problem. I'm not aware of any times that our units, our canine units have been called back to the city that if they've indicated that they were away or not able to respond, that they've been forced to come. If there is any instances where that happened, I need to know about it. That way we can.
No, that has happened. I know for a fact that Ryan Short's been called back. Obviously, he's a bloodhound, so
Right.
there's been several instances where he himself has been called back to the city because I guess the county was short on bloodhounds. From my understanding, I think there's only 2 in the whole county, and Ryan's one of them. So they've had to call people from, I guess, Tomoka, the jail that's all the way out there, to come here to help us out one time. But no, there was never an instance where he himself has gotten in trouble or he was forced to come back.
Okay.
He was just asked and he was available. Fortunately for us, he was available.
Sure.
And he actually came back, so.
Well, in the meantime, please go back and tell the canine officers that if they're at Universal or at a family function or whatever, that, and they're called, just simply tell us that, because obviously there's not gonna be an issue with
Right.
that. Because we don't have a set canine call-out schedule where, like you said, you must be available 24/7,
Right.
you know, like a SWAT team member or something like that. The expectation is not there.
I would hear that. They're okay
We
with saying
need to
that
make
now.
this known to them
Yeah.
through memo or policy, and
Sure.
so that they have their
We
downtime.
can certainly draft a policy that addresses that aspect where it's clear.
Okay.
Are they compensated for the on-call, like on-call time or anything like
Now, and
that?
that was another issue, because, again, our policy is kind of vague, for canine anyway.
Right.
They're considered on-call, they're not being compensated for the on-call status, like CID is, like traffic, like those individuals are being compensated for being on-call.
There's not an on-call schedule per se
Correct.
for the canine officers.
Correct.
It's, the intent and the understanding is that if they're needed and they're called and they're available and they're willing to come in, then they come in and they're paid, you know, the overtime accordingly.
Right.
And again, I want it to be understood that if they're out somewhere and they can't feasibly make it, that there should be no fear of pay. Because the agreement is with the rest of the county, is that you call around and ask for a dog until one is available. If there's not one, then there's not one. And those would be the instances that Tomoka would have been called in by other agencies.
Right. Okay. Then I'll make,
Because there's no way, with the three different disciplines of dogs that we have, there's no way that we can have each one of those on call 24. Because the great majority of our calls is elsewhere. And quite frankly, I don't think the citizens of Longwood would be very happy about paying the overtime for 90% of the calls being outside of the city.
Right.
That was that whole canine mutual aid agreement. And that might be something ahead of the labor management meeting that we have on this issue, is have them take a look at that, because I know that had been forwarded down the chain of that mutual aid agreement. It's called the Seminole County Canine Mutual Aid Agreement. And that might be a little bit more clear as to what the intent was.
If you've got 3 dogs, and they each have a different discipline, correct? I'm not a subject matter expert when it comes to canine. One's drugs, one's regular canine, do you have a bomb dog?
No,
we have a
one,
bloodhound.
right, one's drugs,
Okay.
one's drugs only. Then we have a bloodhound, which is scent detection, strictly. And then we have a full service, which is a scent dog, a drug dog, and a bite dog.
Okay. I would think that was someone that would need to be on call, correct?
Well, that's what she was probably saying through this Seminole County mutual aid agreement. I would imagine him being, or he'd probably be part of that.
Oh yeah, all three of them are part of that,
Okay.
based upon their discipline. But I think what I'm hearing is that through time, this has evolved or morphed into the obligations of all of the agencies are not there per se, meaning that we don't have the dogs scheduled to be 10-8 in the county 24/7
Correct.
for each of these disciplines, which then requires the call-out. And if, hypothetically, if Castleberry's policy is different than ours, where Castleberry, you know, if they're all, if they don't get called, then they're checked off the list, and then it comes full circle. It appears that every time there's a dog that's needed throughout the county, Longwood's called, and then we send
I
somebody
don't know
out.
if you have a say in that Seminole County mutual aid agreement, but I can tell you on Tuesdays, you will not get a dog anywhere in the county. All of them train on Tuesdays, and they're in training. They will not come out.
This is definitely something I will bring up in the countywide chiefs meeting that we hold monthly, because I think what has happened is we've worked into something differently than what the intent of the canine mutual aid agreement, which has been in place for 10 years or more.
I'm also hearing though, if they're busy, if they're out, dinner, Universal, drinking, they get called, they can't make it, it's okay to say, I can't make it.
Right.
Yeah, I guess, again, for here, Longwood purposes, they were just concerned with that, for being on call and not being able to come out and make it. So, but as long as we make it clear to them, I think everyone will be happy on that.
How many THI investigators we have on standby?
Currently in traffic, we only have 3 right now. However, this, and that's why I was asking if there had been anything proposed. We have multiple THI investigators that the city has sent to school and got certified.
Right.
Typically, traffic division has always handled it because they had multiple THI investigators. They have 3 now, and when Jesse and Finch were out on workers' comp, you had 1. And I think you were on vacation at one point when we had a THI call out. And basically the sergeant that was, I can't remember if he was on duty or he wasn't on duty, but anyway, a sergeant who had THI training was called in to work I think it was a train crash, wasn't it? Was called in to work it. So, you know, something that we need to talk about is if the city has paid to send these people to school in those situations where we're running anemic in a unit on call out, that the expectation might be to call somebody in that isn't normally called in on this schedule. Does that make sense? I mean, if y'all want to put all of those people on a schedule all the time, I don't necessarily know that's the right thing to do.
Well, some agencies, you've got 3 or 4 officers who work THIs, they rotate, they take turns. 2 weeks, 1 week, 1 month, whatever. But I talked to somebody in a restaurant with your agency who's literally on call forever because of the status. I think if you're gonna train these people, send them out, they're getting overtime when they get called out, right?
Well, exactly.
Okay, well, then we plug them in and we start a rotation. Send someone to train them, they're not gonna use that
You
training.
talking about people that aren't necessarily assigned to the traffic division?
If the complaint is, we are taking 1 guy for THIs, and we are working him to death, and he has no rotation or no ability to go out and you know, I say we plug them in.
Well, that's not the case now. That was the case during the time that 2 of the 3 members of the traffic unit were out on workers' comp. That's when that happened.
10.5 months.
Rob left, it was just me and Forrest.
So there were 2 of you on call for
We were on about
10.5 months, right? What I'm saying is there wasn't 1 person on call.
Well, yeah, but we could.
There were 2 on the schedule, when the unit was typically at 4 strong, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I agree 100%.
Well, I think we can get together and sit down and look at a rotating schedule to relieve some of the pressure.
Okay.
That's all I have, guys.
Put the feelers out for me though with the people, because I think we have probably 10 people on the department that have been sent to traffic homicide training, and they just, either through promotions or what have you, have transferred out of the traffic unit. What is going to be the general feeling or consensus collectively of those people being added to a standard on-call rotation?
Well, if you got 10 people, then you can divvy
There's
that
one of
up.
them sitting
I
right
was
there.
gonna say, we're gonna be at least 10.
Want to add anything to the discussion?
Yeah, I got some thoughts.
I don't necessarily think that would, just in my opinion. Guys that are no longer in the traffic division have to come out for call-outs. I just, my opinion, I don't know if that would.
Well, we'll sit down and we'll see what will work.
Right. Let's have a discussion on it, we'll come to a resolution on it.